afternoon. We're here at Pike's Pantry. We're in the kitchen of the house making cheese, goat cheese to be specific. And these are the things that we have that we're going to use to make our goat cheese. We have our Chev culture in here, which we're going to take one out and we're going to leave it out. And we store that in the freezer. And you can get these at a cheese making shop. You can get them on Amazon. There's a local country store here that we get it at as well. We also have animal rennet is what you can use. You can also use vegetable rennet, but I prefer that, the animal. I have a 1/4 cup measuring spoon here. I have a 30 cup container or 7 liters. I have my cheese molds and my storage container. And we'll look a little bit more at this when we put the cheese into it. I have my thermometer, stainless steel spoon, I have a stainless steel pot. And then we have our goat milk. And we get this from the local store, the local farmer's market store. It's kind of hard to come by some fresh pasteurized stuff. You want to use the pasteurized and not the ultra pasteurized. So what we're going to do is we've got a gallon of goat milk here and we're going to put all that together and we're going to start making our cheese. Okay, so here we are at the stove and we got our pot on the stove. We're going to shake up our milk, make sure that it's all nice and mixed up together. And we're going to pour our milk into our pot. And again, it's very important to use stainless steel when you're doing cheese. We're going to put all that in there. Going to turn our oven on, or stove, excuse me. There we go. I'm going to turn that on to medium heat. We're going to put our thermometer back. You can use a digital thermometer this as well, but I prefer to use the old-time version. And we're going to mix that up a little bit. And so this is going to take a little bit of time, but we're at about 50 degrees with our milk. And we want to bring it up to 92 degrees, and that's when we stop. So we will let that go there for a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare my rennet, and I'm going to use bottled water. You don't want to use regular tap water because it has chlorine in it, and it can kill the culture. And we're going to put 2 drops of rennet in there. I'm going to let that sit. And we're going to prep our culture. We're going to open that up. Get it ready. And we're going to open our bowl here. And that's going to be it for a little bit of time. We going to keep mixing this, make sure you get a nice even warming. And that'll take about 10 minutes. So we're back and it's approaching 92 degrees. I like to keep my milk moving around to make sure it gets warm all the way around. And we are almost there. 92, one more. And pull the heat off. Get the thermometer out. And we're gonna pour it into our container. We do get quite a bit of condensation on the outside of our pot. It usually ends up on the floor, so be careful down there. And we're going to add our culture. Spread it out over the top evenly. And we're going to give that a few moments to reanimate. So it was frozen. The culture is going to reanimate in the warmth. And we give that a few moments. You can use a bunch of different types of containers. I've used glass Pyrex dishes before. I found for me this is the one that works the best. It's a good size, makes a good square curd. And we're going to mix that up. Pour our rennet solution in. And mix that up. So I use a spoon with holes in it. You can use a regular spoon. This is my cheese spoon, because when I do the curd, the whey comes off and it filters. And we'll take a look more at that when we get to that point. And then we're going to cover it. And we're going to push it up here. And it should be kept at 72 degrees for about 24 hours before we process again. It's winter time and it's been cold here, so we don't even get up to 72 degrees in the house. So we're usually at about 65 degrees. So we just let it go, and I've learned what the consistency is that we're looking for when it's time to process next. And so we're going to wait 24 hours, and then we are going to put our curd in our cheese molds, and then they'll sit for another 24 hours after that. So we will see you again tomorrow. We're into 24 hours later, second day, getting ready to take our curd, put it in our cheese molds. So this is what I've been using, which are cheese molds and just some spacers at the bottom here to keep everything up so that the liquid, as it's draining, comes out through the bottom. I've got my stainless steel spoon. I've got a gallon jar for our whey that's going to be left over. A little bit of curds in there, it's going to be in there too. And we'll open the top. And so now we have a very large curd. So we're going to just slowly take the curd, start filling up our cheese molds. So we want to fill them almost all the way up to the top. They do not come out this large. They come out in much smaller things. As they dry, they will shrink into much smaller packages of cheese. But this is where we start. And so what we have left over is mostly whey. There's some of the curds, because I don't get them all out. I put that in the gallon jar, and we use them for a variety of things. Rice instead of water. Quinoa instead of water comes out fantastic. It's much better flavor in there than if you were to use just water. I prefer just the white quinoa. Although we have tried the red, I don't think it comes out as nice. And it doesn't matter if the curd gets broken up. It'll all stick together as it dries up. Now we're just whatever little pieces are left over. Keep filling up these here. So try and keep them as even as possible so that cheese all comes out the same again. Another good use of the leftover curds and whey is for dog food. We feed our dogs primarily dry dog food, and we add water, or when we have leftover whey, we give them that as well. So I'm just trying to get as much of the curds out as possible. Little pieces here and there. And that looks like we got just about all of that out of there. So we will pour this into the jar. And so that's about what we have for the moment. So before the end of the day, we're going to, or in a little bit, we're going to just leave this covered here for a little bit, because the majority of the moisture is going to come out of this and down into the bottom. So I will put the cups back into the container just so that I can pour the whey out that's come out for tonight. So we're going to leave it covered on the kitchen counter where it'll stay about 63 to 66 degrees during a normal day in our house, which we keep pretty cold. The whey we're going to put back into the refrigerator, and we can start using that for the dogs and cooking, that kind of stuff. Very nutritious for you. So that's step 2 for the most part. We will come back tomorrow to flip the cheese so we get a nice even round edges and make it look pretty. And then on the last step is to wrap it in paper, and not a lot of time to do the cheese, to make it, of actual processing time. Most of the time is just sitting around waiting for you to do something. So here we are the next day. Another 24 hours has gone by. Last night, after about an hour or so, I took the cheese out, the molds out, and poured what was remaining in here, which filled the rest of our gallon jar. And then I did have more left over that I ended up giving to the dogs for a treat. A little while ago, I emptied out a little bit more for the dogs. And we're just going to turn the molds, the cheese, in the molds tonight. So I found this is the quickest way, is to use another one. Tap it a little bit, and you can see, I think, I'll have to check that later, that it's gone down into the bottom, and it's nice, neat. Wait, I used to do this by hand, by putting it on my hand and then rolling it and trying to get it back in. But I have found, through experimenting, that this process that's nice and clean, they come out really nice, and it only makes a little bit of mess. So the cheese does look like it's coming along pretty nicely. Fold them over. Turn. Clean up our mess. And that's where it will sit. Again, keeping it at 72 degrees for another 24 hours should be just right. Again, our house is always less than that, even when we turn our heat on. So it'll sit there for another 24 hours, and we will do our finished product tomorrow night. Okay, so here we are last night. We're processing. Take the lid off. Get to the cheese. So I've got some cheese wrap paper, and we have our cheese. It's the tough part. Turn it over, give it a tap, and that's what it looks like when it comes out. A paper towel, get the moisture off, and center it a little bit there. Try and center it, and then we wrap it. And I've prepared some little stickers to hold it down. And we just do that 7 times. You can see we've got nice round edges, got some little bumps, but as we put this on it, smooths it out, those little bumps. We have a nice good consistency of our cheese. I've got these little dots, I call them. It's what we use to label most of our products on the top lids. They work real nice. I put the date on them so I know what date is, because we always have a variety of cheese at different stages in our house. So I do freeze these afterwards if I'm going to keep them for a while, or if we use it fresh, we use it within a few days. It doesn't last very long in our household. Sometimes they don't want to wrap very well. We just have to move it around until we can get a good wrap on it. And we do get 7 cheeses out of it. So I've never actually weighed these to see what they weigh, but we typically have fresh cheese in the refrigerator, and I also freeze it. I've learned that if we freeze it and then let it defrost in the refrigerator for 24 hours, it works just as well. It tastes just as good. So that's our 7 cheeses. This will be, there's a little bit of whey left in here. And so I've got this as an example. It's definitely frozen solid. And we also do, when we put it in the refrigerator, we put it in a mason jar, little one with a lid, and that's what we use out of it. And again, it lasts in the freezer for months. We take it out and just put it in the jar, put it in the refrigerator for 24 hours, and we're good. And that is how we make our homemade goat cheese.